scenes stuff.
Let's do it. We're recording now.
Okay, perfect. So that way, it always is good little clips for IG or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So, like I said, I'll just mute myself and then we'll start it up. And you guys will hear.
Okay, cool. Elle, you say hi. What? Oh, sorry.
I'm Lawrence.
And I'm Erin, and this is
Beyond the Journal.
Wow, every time?
Every time.
Wow. Okay, so this is Beyond the Journal, and here we talk about New York City basketball, community, culture, love, life.
Everything from the government to the grocery store.
That's right, and there's only one place you can hear it.
Beyond the Journal.
Wow, really?
I like that one better.
Okay, can we just start the show, please?
I don't care how old you are, that intro never gets old.
We've heard it like 4 times.
It never gets old.
Oh.
Welcome back to Beyond the Journal.
That gets old. That gets old, though.
I'm in the middle of an introduction.
Yeah.
Shall I repeat?
No, thanks. I think we're good.
This is Lawrence, and my co-host is here.
This is Erin.
There it is. Thank you very much. And we have missed you terribly.
We've had some technical difficulties.
So, some technical difficulties, indeed. And in the sake of transparency, listen,
do it.
We have uncomfortable conversations on the air and off the air.
Or not.
Or not. Or sometimes those conversations can't happen because one of us is not ready to talk. Right?
Oh, is that what we're saying?
But it has been a very interesting thing, learning to not only be professional, but also that not everyone is coming from the same place when we communicate.
I think it's also been really helpful to test us to see if we practice what we preach.
Listen, you do a lot more preaching about the communication and how important it is than I do.
I think you do enough preaching for all of us. So don't say I do enough preaching. No. Okay. Preaching about communication, is that what we're saying?
We're coming in hot. This show is about 2 minutes old, and I feel like I'm on a hot seat.
Technical difficulties.
Yes. We have been away
Listen,
for a
just
while.
because we have difficult conversations doesn't mean we're happy and we get along and we're friends.
That's true.
So, however, it does mean, though, that there's a level of respect and that we're continuing the communication. Sometimes you have to step back, right, and take it all in and process it and decide what works and what doesn't and figure out how you feel about certain things. And then, you can reconvene and see where it goes. And so that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Part of the difficult conversations is also having enough self-respect and also enough respect for the relationship to take a breather, because a lot of times when you're pushed in those situations, you say things that you may regret later.
Oh, yeah.
And so sometimes everybody just needs a little bit of emotional space.
So with that, I do have a question. And I guess this show is just going to be about communication today. And I don't
guess
mind.
so.
I don't mind that at all.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I often hear about people saying, I need space. I need space. And I respect the fact that people need space. But at what point is someone supposed to encroach upon that space? Because the other person may not realize that space is becoming like a problem or detrimental or damaging, and we need to meet in the middle, right? And the reason I ask is because I'm the guy who's quick to detach. I'm quick to give space, right? And so I'm trying to learn myself a little more from an adult's perspective, and trying not to just carry on with behaviors I've had since I was a kid, right? But I still don't know, because I feel like what you just said about respect is so true. We often disrespect in these confrontations, and we don't even mean to. Sometimes we do mean to, right? So what I do is I step back so that I don't become disrespectful. And it's like, I don't know that I'm always doing the right thing, but I definitely don't want to be disrespectful, and I know I might get disrespectful.
So here's how, in self-reflection of our conversation and others that I've had, and then also kind of diving deeper a little bit into boundaries. what I think makes most sense and probably could have been very helpful in our argument is having the self-awareness and the respect, right? To say, I am not in the space to be able to have this conversation right now because I don't want to regret anything that I say.
Right.
So I'm going to need to step back out of respect for all of it and just take some time to process. I think we need to speak again in 7 days. I think we need to speak again in 12 days.
So make it measurable?
In some ways, because I think you have to... I can go both ways on this. In some ways, I think it's helpful if you're having an argument... You need time and space to figure out where you're headed next. So I think it makes sense. You can check in 7 days. We can go, okay, 7 days, and we can check in 7 days and go, you know what, I'm still not there. I think I need a little more time.
Yeah, that felt very businesslike when you said it.
Right, but I think it's helpful to manage expectations, right? Because if you just leave it open-ended, sometimes some things need to be left open-ended, though.
Really?
I think so.
That's a weird thing to say.
I really do. I think it's helpful to set some expectations if possible, but sometimes, and probably our argument was one of them, where, I don't think we would have even come to an agreement at that point on a set date. I would have been like 7 days and you would have been like, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Like 24. And I would have been like, that's crazy. Then 3. And like, we couldn't have even agreed on a number. So I think it was probably just like, it was just better to step away. But also I think you have to leave, when I say, no timeline, I think you have to leave space for the universe to do its job.
Like it can organically happen.
Yeah, and you have lessons to learn. You have things to think about. You have self-reflection to do. And sometimes, signs or messages come to you through that journey of trying to digest everything that happened. And then, because not only do you have to digest what happened, then you have to figure out how you're feeling.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, so one of the things I struggle with in terms of confrontation, especially with people that I have to maintain a relationship with, right? Or people that I care about. In that confrontation, when I detach, I can really detach and I can start anticipating if we never speak again, okay, then I'll have to prepare for that, right? And I know where that came from. I've spoken about my issues on the air.
Yes.
But I also have been starting to look at things differently. And I think what has been very important for me is accepting a couple of facts. The number one thing I had to accept is that humans were human, right? And I was holding people to very, very high standards and my own expectations. And in most cases, expectations I didn't even communicate yet. I just expect you to know. And the only reason I know this is because my son and I are very similar. And so I see him with his brothers. He expects them to know how to treat him based on how he treats them and how he communicates. And it's like, but did you say that to him? And he's like, no. And then I hear myself asking myself, but did I say that? No, but I'm angry, right? So there's that. But then the other thing is that people are coming from different perspectives, and that means so many things at once. So many things at once. So understanding that, I've been able to say, I got to let this go.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing I can do to undo that, right? And what am I really protecting myself from? Because that's what a lot of the walls are, right? We're protecting ourselves from something, but it already happened, right? I'm already angry. So now what? That's what I'm working on. It's not that easy, though.
No, it's definitely not. It's not easy to do it, but I think it's really important. I mean, it's important work, and I think I don't know. We could go all day about this expectations and not expectations, but I will say, to your point, I think that what you're saying about perspective, it's very interesting because I think I said this to you too. Is I think that's probably like 80% of our battle, maybe even more, right? And it's just not just perspective, but different conditioning, different trauma responses, all of these differences, right? And then when you throw them into the mix and you're like in a heated argument with someone.
Yeah, because we discuss some very deep issues, and when you're discussing deep issues with someone who comes from an opposite side, it can be really like a visceral response. Like it can be emotionally evoking,
the reason
right?
why is because you go from you go into an unsafe space. You feel unsafe. And then when you start to feel unsafe, you get defensive. And then when you start to get defensive, then you start getting angry and heated. And then it can lead to regret because you can get really heated and lash out and say something because you feel triggered.
But are you unsafe because you feel threatened, or are you unsafe because something you've known to be so real, so permanent, so true is now in question?
Yeah,
and this person's triggering it.
That's
right?
a huge part of it.
Yeah, and I think that happens with us a lot, right? Because there are certain things we don't see eye to eye on. I'm like, how? How could you not?
Yeah.
Right, and then it starts to like, are you playing, or like you playing, right? You don't understand that, right? And yeah, and I think it's vice versa.
Yeah, well, just also having to accept the fact, that what you truly believed so deeply is now being rocked in a way, but more importantly, in a way that kind of makes sense. And then you go, what? No, that can't. No, that can't be. So then you start building the walls real quick. Mm-hmm. They got to go up real fast because now you don't feel safe because everything you thought you knew with whatever that particular thing we're talking about or whatever it triggered, you felt safe in that. And now all of a sudden it's being questioned or rocked or accused or whatever. So you have different responses.
But the crazy part is that's that moment. That's that tipping point, right? Where you lean in. Like you always say, lean into the discomfort, lean into the discomfort. When you lean into that uncomfortable feeling of having your world rocked by this newfound curiosity that came from an outside source, if you lean into that, you might fall into whenever I think of you saying lean into it and then like breaking through a barrier, I think of like breaking through a barrier and then like falling through the sky. There's like this very anxious feeling, right? But now there's this whole new world you're falling through, and you just have to find a way to stay afloat, balance yourself, and start anew, right? And you'll find a way to fly. We always find a way to fly or swim, however you want to, expand the metaphor. But it's scary, though, especially when we live in a society where I could go and never come back, period. Like I feel like that sits everywhere around us. I could go and never come back. I could block you. I could shut this down. I could turn this off. I could go and never come back.
I think that's more true for like our kids' generation for sure.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. Not for me. That's not the language I speak though. So
I grew up in that language.
I know, and that's one of our biggest differences.
Yeah, it is.
Because I'll always say, "Where are you going? Why are you running away from this? This is a conversation. Like, let's go. We're doing this."
And I'm always like, "Oh, you feel that way? Fine, we're done."
You know what I mean? And then you wanna, and then it's like, you're right, and that's the end of the conversation, and you're done. And I'm like, hold up, where'd you go? Like, that's not how we're doing that. This isn't what we talk about. We talk about this exact moment. And this is when I say lean in, and whenever I say lean in, you go the other way.
Yeah, it's difficult for me.
So I'm like, I get it, but I'm just saying it's one of those things, like, that's where the growth is.
Yeah, well, you're right. That is where the growth is. And just thinking about, like, my upbringing, it is such a, I don't want to say it's a language. It's almost a culture of just being able to manipulate people, right? And so when we get in these vulnerable spaces with people who are testing our ideologies and our entire foundations because we've allowed them into this space trustingly, right? That's what happens. You start to feel like, oh no, what am I doing? Am I opening myself up for all these things I've seen other people go through or things that I've gone through in the past, right? Yeah. And we have this in all sorts of relationships, not just romantic relationships, friendships, teamships, like brotherhood, like you don't feel comfortable letting people in. And I feel like that's a natural thing in the culture that I came up in. And now that I'm trying to be my own person and trying to do things differently, I've really had to be brave to step past that, to be brave to not just say, all right, fine, we disagree on this. I'm going my way, you go your way, right? To actually say, I'm going to sit and think about this and revisit it has taken a lot from me, because usually you cut people off so they can't manipulate you, right? So then when you're having these conversations and you're getting like deeply involved in just how you see the world and your perspectives, and you start to feel threatened, for me, it's a natural feeling to feel like that other person is trying to manipulate me, is trying to get me to believe, and everything that person is doing right now is trying to get me to believe what that person wants me to believe and disbelieve what I already believed, right? Wow. So it's a very visceral response. And so I gotta cut those pathways off. You can't keep coming in here trying to manipulate and influence, right? And for me, that only really happens with people I'm like really connecting with. I get nervous and I back away.
Yeah.
No,
I get it. It makes sense. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. I had a great conversation recently. It was an amazing conversation, actually. And that was one of the things, I think her quote, she shared it online. You can follow her at Get Fit Fly Right. She's amazing, and she's into meditation, and she's a basketball coach and all of those things. She's amazing. Her story is great. So anyway, definitely check her out. But we had a great conversation. Shoot, I can't remember the quote. I need to look it up. But it's something about like, when I feel seen, I can feel seen. Like what was it? Something about having the space. Like when you feel seen, you have the space to see yourself.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yes.
It was something like that. So, and we had this great conversation where she opened up to me, and because she felt safe enough and vulnerable enough to share some really intimate things with me, she gave me the permission to then share back.
Right.
And it kind of, we just continued like going farther and farther. And we were on the phone for over 2 hours, and we talked a lot about race. And we talked a lot about being a female and also, white privilege and all of these things. And it was really, really amazing. She said something that was really crazy. She said so many things that were so crazy that just rocked my mind, and it was amazing. But I'm just saying, it's like, that moment was very vulnerable for her. And, I'm not going to share personal details, but of why she opened up to me. And it was transformative. It's really amazing when you do lean in. Anyway, sorry, shout out to that. I love those like deep conversations like that.
Yeah, I think it's also, for me right now, just even listening to the kind of conversation you're having with her, it's also, I'm at a point now where I'm struggling to I've been so understanding my whole life of other people's perspectives, and now I'm starting to like challenge people's perspectives, because it's like, what the hell, like you can't truly see the world this way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's become a little negative. I'm struggling with certain things that never used to bother me before. I'm struggling with people's privilege. And that's not coming from an envious perspective. It's coming from I know the foundation of your privilege. Like, I've been studying history so deeply that it's like, I know how you got this way. I know why the society's this way. And it's like pissing me off a little bit. Mm-hmm. So then interacting with people, when I see certain things, I'm triggered now too, is another thing I'm noticing. Right? So it's like, the more I know, the tougher it's become for me to be accepting. And it's almost like that ignorance is bliss thing. Like, I kind of was better off being ignorant, because now I'm seeing things that it's like, oh, really? That's, and my goal, and even in this conversation, is to connect, right? Is to like break down barriers, because I feel like my true journey as a person, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is to connect to people so that we can mutually recognize our powers and build and edify something worth leading by example. You know what I mean? And so I'm constantly trying to connect with people, but I'm withdrawing a lot more lately as I'm learning more. And it's been a weird thing, because I'm triggered in conversations and no one can know why I'm triggered. And so it's been weird. So even in our dynamic, right, there are certain triggers that happen you may not even understand.
Yeah, no, there's lots of those.
Okay, relax. Relax.
It's true.
So it's a tough thing to manage, to interact with people while I'm on a journey through myself as well.
Yeah.
Because everybody's at a different point in their journey, and just everyone has their own triggers, because my trigger is very different from yours and the next person's. And so, again, communication is so important, but communication for me is also kind of tricky. So I don't know.
It's hard. It's
Maybe
all
I'm doomed.
hard.
Maybe I'm doomed.
Don't say that. That's a terrible thing. And stop. The universe is listening. Don't talk like that.
I take that back.
Yes. Don't do that. That's
all right.
No.
My bad.
So, okay. So, wow. That was an intro.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that wasn't even where the show was supposed to go.
I don't even know what just happened. Anyway, so we're back.
Yeah.
We're still having technical difficulties, but I think you can hear us a little bit better now.
Yeah.
And we're working through all of this, whatever nonsense. And we're moving, because that's what it is. And we're moving on to news, right?
Yeah, we can start with the news. Should we start with the NBA news?
Sure.
I mean, the boys are out of the playoffs. Our guys.
So I want to know if it's like the end of an era, because LeBron, for the first time ever, is out in round 1.
And then Chef Curry was out in round 1 as well.
And LeBron just announced that he's changing his number back to 6 next season, because he was 6.
Oh my gosh.
No, you know what? We got some comments in the DMs about that, and people are like, anything for attention.
Oh, wow.
So, very interesting. There's a lot of LeBron hate out there.
Can I understand it, please? Can someone explain to me why people hate LeBron?
Ew. That's, how do you not? I mean, listen, I love LeBron off the court. I kind of feel the same way about Kyrie as I do with LeBron. I like him off the court. What? I'm
just saying, like, there's nothing off the court to dislike about LeBron James.
Off the court, but
except
on the court.
maybe a couple of pairs of pants
but
that he wore that I was like, that was questionable.
Okay, but anyway, on the court, there's lots of hate for LeBron. First of all, haters want to hate. You're one of them. Come on, not about LeBron, but Melo.
Wow.
You love to hate Melo.
All roads lead to Melo.
You
on this
love
show.
to hate Melo.
I like Melo.
No,
I think he's a
you
wonderful
don't.
guy.
Stop it.
I just thought his game needed to evolve.
Stop it. Anyway.
People didn't want to be honest about it.
So haters like to hate. You're a perfect example. So there's that. And then also, LeBron has a lot of control. Like, he whines to the refs, and he gets certain calls. And, it's like if LeBron says it, LeBron makes his own teams. Whatever. I can see why people don't like him. People also don't like great things.
I think the people who are listening to the podcast can actually hear me smiling right now.
Why?
Because you've not given any good reasons to hate LeBron.
I'm not saying I hate LeBron.
I'm just
like
saying
that.
no one should, based on those reasons.
I'm just saying I don't hate LeBron. I mean, I don't love him. I don't love his game, but that's fine. It's just not the style that I love, but that's fine. I'm not a LeBron hater. I'm just saying there are a lot of people who hate him, and he's changing his number, and that's a conversation people are going crazy with. So anyway, that was that part of the news.
Well, they're out of the playoffs, and
yeah.
It's a young man's game.
Yes,
right
a
now.
lot of young players making huge impacts, like Trey Young at the Knicks.
Oh man, that was so funny. That was hilarious.
How was that funny? That was not funny.
That's not hilarious?
That's not funny.
Y'all got real crazy with
hater.
him.
You are a hater.
New York Knicks fans, y'all got real crazy with Trey Young. Boy, did y'all set up the Knicks. Whoops. What are y'all doing? He is a stone cold killer, that kid. Leave him alone. Leave him alone.
I think it was the first game or second game that his floater in the lane is insane.
How many wins did the Knicks get in that series?
I don't even remember.
One. Wasn't it one?
No, because they came back to New York.
I feel like they had to come back to New York.
No, they won 2. They had to win 2.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, because they won there was 3 here in New York first. They won 2, and then they went to Atlanta. Anyway, who cares? We can't spend all day on that. Okay, you looked that up. The other cool thing that happened recently is D Wade is a part owner of the Utah Jazz. And so he was courtside, and he was coaching Donovan the other night, which was really cool to see. Which
is cool.
Yeah, super cool.
I think
part owner coaching Donovan from the it's cool.
It's also a before and after kind of deal. You've got Dwayne Wade and his descendant, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the Knicks didn't win a game. I mean, they didn't win more than one game.
They didn't? I thought they won 2.
They went crazy over one playoff win. They went crazy.
I knew you were
The streets went mad. What? You would have thought they were trying to dodge the draft the way they were acting out there.
Do you want to hear something crazy, though?
What?
At least in my opinion. Did you watch any of the games?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, there was something very interesting to me at the New York games.
What?
The crowd was all white. And I'm wondering, I thought that like stood out to me actually. And then I had seen several people make comments on Instagram afterwards. It was an observation that I made and I said that's interesting, and then I looked up the ticket prices.
What were the ticket prices?
Like $15,000.
Excuse me?
Yeah, the tickets were stupid expensive.
Why?
Because Knicks tickets are expensive, period. But then for playoffs, and they haven't been in the playoffs forever, and they haven't won, and they really believed in this team.
Oh, wow.
The tickets were crazy, and that was interesting.
Business
to see. And if you see like all of the videos like outside after, like for some reason that stuck out to me. I don't know. Am I the only one? Let me know, because I saw a couple people mention it online, and so I was like, because I thought I was the only one who was like noticing it, and then I saw some people say it, and I was like, oh, I was right. Like I did see that, but it was really interesting, and I think that could be a case. Like there could be something.
Did they pack the stadium?
The energy in that place looked crazy. Yeah.
Despite the tickets, wow. That's really interesting.
I don't know. You can get tickets for cheaper than that, but those were like good seats. But it's still very expensive to go to a playoff game in New York.
Yeah.
For the Knicks. I don't know about the Nets tickets, but anyway, okay, moving on. But the Knicks do have the coach of the year, so that's exciting.
Yeah, and that was well deserved. I will give Tom Thibodeau a lot of credit for what he did with that team. He really got them to empower themselves and empower each other and to play like a team. I think they recognized that their advantage as the New York Knicks team was not about star power, because they have a couple of players that could be stars elsewhere or could be touted as stars in other towns. But to have them be playing selfless basketball despite how big their heads could be, right? Pause. So that was awesome.
Yeah,
team ball. That was awesome.
And he's also really big on defense, which I love.
Oh, I've always loved Tom Thibodeau since he was a Bull.
Okay. So speaking of black and white, though, this is super cool. Did you see there's an all-black gymnastics team that's representing the women this year at the Olympics? That's super cool.
I've been seeing it all over the internet.
I love that. I think that's super cool.
That's really cool.
And then also for women, I'm just throwing these in quickly just to get through it. But the women's basketball team for the Olympics is actually going to be aired like on NBC's Olympic schedule for the first time.
As they should.
As
they should.
In full. Yeah.
Those women work hard and they're talented.
So that's super exciting.
Good.
And if we're still going to talk about women in sports and kind of also this plays into the communication theme. Look at that. Full circle here.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Exactly how we planned it.
So Naomi Osaka withdrew from the French Open. She had announced that she was going to skip her press conferences due to mental health reasons. She was fined, and then because there was so much media around it, she decided to withdraw. So that leads to a lot of questions and a lot of debate about whether she should be fined or not. How does mental health play into it? And I think the other thing that I thought of, Lawrence, that we didn't really speak to is how that ties into the conversation we've had on several past episodes about how much access we have to the athletes. And I understand you have to see that the press sponsors a lot of it. There's money behind it. So, that's the reason why they have to show up.
Yep.
But there's some problems in that, especially as athletes start to get more. She has a ton of money. She doesn't need to do that.
The money.
Right? So she can pay the fine, but I think what she did, for me personally, have so much respect for the way that she chose herself. She chose her mental health. She stepped away regardless. And she even took accountability, which I didn't even think she necessarily had to take. But she said after she announced it that she was going to step away because her goal was never to take attention away from the event or whatever. And so she should have handled it better. I thought that was incredibly amazing, but also maybe not necessary. But
it was classy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. But this just brings up so many things. I mean, I know you're dying to speak. I can see you shaking over there.
Let me at it. I'm so proud of her.
Yep.
I'm so proud of her.
Definitely.
And I'm so proud of the athlete for this sentiment, because I think the athlete has been used as the sled dog for far too long. And I think the athlete should have a little more autonomy, at least spiritually, right? At least emotionally.
Right.
Allow the athlete to be what the athlete needs to be in order to be as great as you wish for the athlete to be, right? When you see the athlete. And it's the same with anyone. And I think there are going to be so many people who say, you know, you did a job, you signed a contract, do your job, honor the contract, right? And for me, it's if more people did things like this, they would get more respect. But it's because there are so many people who are willing to yield. It's never, and I say this all the time, it's never the opposition that ruins the revolution. It's the people in the middle who refuse to do anything, right?
That's true.
And so if more athletes spoke up, if more athletes actually said, you know what, I need a personal day, right? But the problem is there's, number one, these contracts. Number two, fans pay, fans want to see, right? And number three, our entire society refuses to acknowledge how important mental, spiritual, and emotional health is. And we have run the well dry of pretense. It is all out in the open now. We are running and working people ragged for the pace and the sake of the dollar. It is not for the people. It is not for some union. It's for the dollar. And if it's for the dollar, it won't matter how many people have to die and sacrifice on the way to prosperity, right? So good on her. Good on the next player that does it too. And in fact, they're going to say, you know what? You guys can't play in our leagues. Cool. We'll start our own. We'll make our own rules. I believe in it. I was so hyped when she did this. I threw up the black fist. Revolution. Oh, my God. Right?
No,
good for her.
Listen, it took a lot of vulnerability for her to do that. And I think that's amazing, especially when you're not in a, good headspace. Yeah. If you're really suffering from anxiety and depression, to be able to choose you is really, that is revolutionary. Yes. And so I think that she did something really amazing, and I hope it's the start of something big, because it's so necessary and it is lacking so much in this country. We just brush that under the rug. But you know what the craziest thing is, and isn't this it with everything? If we addressed it, so many other problems would self-correct. But because we just keep brushing it under the rug, it's like putting a Band-Aid on instead of fixing it.
Yep.
Right?
Let the scar heal.
Right. And so it kind of like, if we would address the mental health in this country and self-care, right, in this country, I think we would see a lot of huge differences.
Yeah, and I think the fact that our athletes are, especially our NBA players, like, they're big on stuff like this, but like the fact that our athletes are doing it, it really does make it okay, because for all intents and purposes, our athletes are like the American and international version of the Greek gods and goddesses, like, or the Olympic Games back in the past, right? Like, they really do see these people as larger than life because of their physical abilities, right? And so to see them take care of themselves, despite the fact that they're larger than life, wait a minute, I might need to take care of myself too, because I have a grueling job. I have a taxing job, and I'm so stressed out I feel this way. I can relate. Yeah, we're all human. We are not robots and machines as we have been treated. I feel like I'm going to get zapped out of the matrix for the way I speak sometimes. I truly do.
Well, Steph Curry said, you shouldn't ever have to make a decision like this, but so damn impressive taking the high road when the powers that be don't protect their own. And I thought that was really amazing, and also ties it back to basketball and Curry, who is out of the playoffs. Just a reminder.
Wow. Ouch.
Just letting you know.
I like Steph Curry.
I didn't say I didn't. Anyway, so back to all of this mental health. So if you didn't know, I meditate daily, and I actually use the Calm app. This is not a paid advertisement, I promise you. However, I wanted to shout them out because they were so impressed with Naomi that they are donating $15,000 to a global sports organization that actually empowers athletes.
Wow.
It's really amazing. But they're donating to the division in France. And then they're also paying the fines for players who opt out of 2021 Grand Slam media appearances for mental health reasons.
Whoa.
So they're going to cover that. And their message was mental health is just as important as physical health. And it really truly is. And as I dive...
Is the app?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's like huge. I mean, LeBron, again, back to basketball.
Oh, that's right.
LeBron had
He's
his
out of the
series,
playoffs,
yeah,
just so we're clear.
round one for the first
Round
time
one.
ever.
Sorry.
So yeah, it's amazing, and it has helped me on my journey so much so that I'm actually getting certified to teach meditation and mindfulness to young athletes, which I'm almost finished with my second round of courses, so I'll be certified in like the end of next week. Yeah, so I'm super excited about that, and it really falls in line with all of this because one thing that a lot of, people I would assume know this, but, there's a huge mental game, and, you have to take care of your mental health, and it can improve performance and being able to, your awareness and all of these things. So as I always say, your mind's a very powerful thing. So it's really, really important. And so that's amazing that they're stepping up and backing her and also, making a stance. And I love it. And I am a huge, huge lover of the Calm app. So I have to say I use it every single day.
Wow.
So I think I'm on like 242 days today.
In a row?
Mm-hmm. 242, I think, is my streak today.
That's an insane number.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I know people who haven't even brushed their teeth that many days in a row.
Okay, what? Stop.
That's a weird thing to note.
Yeah. So,
but I do.
242.
Yo, that's pretty impressive.
So it's 300. I've done 301 total sessions, but I wasn't consistent. This is 242 in a row. So, I've meditated for 51 hours and 46 minutes. The
$1 million question is,
yeah,
has it worked?
Yes.
What has it worked to do for you?
Couldn't you tell from our argument how calm I was and how great everything was?
You were calm.
No, it has helped me in so many tremendous ways. It's changed my life. It is changing my life. It's still changing my life. That's the greatest thing about meditation is it's a journey and you're never at the end. It's a continuous journey of learning and unlearning and relearning. And really, it's just about accepting. It's basically what we say is noticing what's inside of us and outside of us and being okay with all of it. So it's really just acceptance and awareness and allowing yourself to flow through it all. And so some days are really great meditating and some days are not really great meditating. It just depends, like, how much you can calm your mind. But breathing is huge. Breathing is everything. So just even tapping into my breath when I get upset now, it's very, very helpful. I see my reactivity has lessened big time, and I can take a step back and I can breathe. And then I can recenter myself. And then I could say, hey, I need 7 days.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, then I could handle that a lot better. So, yeah, but it has really made a huge difference. I'm a huge, huge advocate, and I'm just at the beginning of this advocacy. So if you're sick of hearing it, I'm nowhere near where I'm going to be. But because I believe in it so strongly.
I'm interested. I've really been diving into my spirituality and mental health. I've been studying like Eastern philosophy. I've also been listening to a lot of Alan Watts. You can check out Alan Watts on YouTube. I check him out pretty regularly, and I have dialogues in my head, just trying to understand what is the healthiest way to maintain my mental state, especially with all the information I try to put in on a regular basis and just all that I've got going on emotionally, right? What is a good space?
It's about noticing without attaching, right? So noticing.
That's difficult not to attach.
Of course. That's the whole point of the practice.
We live in a society where we're trying to grab and keep just in case, grab and keep just in case.
And this is the exact opposite of that. And that's why it's so difficult. And that's why it's so challenging. And
it's the complete opposite. Like, let go, even though you know things turn to crap.
Let go. You have to let go. You literally cannot hold on to anything. You have to let go.
That's funny to say. I was listening today. You will never guess what song I had on repeat. The people who follow me in the morning on the Way with Racor on Instagram know this song, but you'll never guess what song I had on repeat. Don't worry. Be happy. But it's true. And in the song, he's like, life is like terrible.
Bobby
right?
McFerrin.
Yes, Bobby McFerrin. Everybody goes through trouble. He says, but when you worry, you make it double. Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah. How did I know that name? Like, where did that come from?
It was pretty weird. Weird.
But I loved that song. Like, when that song came out, that was everything. I loved that song.
That song is awesome.
But it is so true. And that's why you can't, honestly, we can do multiple shows about this. I will talk you through all of it that I've learned and I'm still learning, but that's the beautiful part is the journey and learning it all. It's just so opposite of even what I was when we started this show, which is so crazy to me because I was so like my grip was so tight on everything in my life. Like I was just like losing it. And so because I was losing it, I just kept holding on tighter. Yeah. And that's the exact opposite of what you need to do. So as soon as I started to loosen the grip and then finally just start to let go of a lot of things, a lot of internal things, expectations and ideas of what things were supposed to be or should be or whatever. So, when you start to let go, you start to see like things so differently. It's very, I don't know. It's very challenging though.
No, but it's been cool because I don't know why, but I have a tendency to feel like if people could just have more of what they say they need or what they say they want, then they'll get to a place where they're comfortable and we can all just be chill. Like I'm so used to helping people who are anxious or nervous that sometimes it can be at the sacrifice of what I want because I'm not paying attention to myself. And then I turn around and I resent that person.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And I have to learn to stop doing that. I even have to learn to stop doing that with my sons. Mm-hmm. I turn around and, I resent them for not appreciating efforts I'm putting forth in a way that I expect them to. And they're probably looking at me like, bro, I don't even know what you're talking about. I was just trying to play PlayStation and get in the pool. Like, what are you talking about? Right. So there again, those expectations, they can truly set you up for disappointment, resentment, and failure.
That's the other thing is about
let go.
Releasing expectations. And the one thing that I love so much in one of the recent meditations, it's come up several times, but it's about change is ever present.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. And so that's part of control, right? Is like, or hanging on so tight. Like we don't want it to change. We're afraid of change. We don't know what's on the other side. And there, there's a million different things. So one of the meditations that I love so much is about, she compares change to the ocean waves. And she said, and then what you need to do instead of fear the waves is grab your surfboard. And you need to ride
the wave.
And that goes back again to a word that I just keep using all the time is flow, because not only is flow important, to let go and to, stop resisting change, but it's also incredibly important for an athlete. When you hit your flow state is when you're at, peak performance. Yep. And so a lot of that is mental. And what it is what people think is like, they do studies to find out on certain athletes. I've read a bunch of case studies recently, and it's like you have to be into mindfulness and you have to be self-aware to understand what triggers you and what pushes you. So things that you may think are negative, you could actually tap into to push you, and then sometimes those things set you off in the wrong direction. So you need to learn to be able to accept it. Be aware of it, accept it, and then release it so it doesn't impact your game. Same thing of the game of life, right? It's like the same thing. So, but when you're able to tap into it and figure it out, then your performance goes up in whatever area you're working on, or just in general in life.
I agree with you. I think you have to keep that mental space as clear as possible, and something like meditation or whatever gets you in touch with your soul. There are different, obviously there's so many different pathways to your own soul, and whatever way you get in there, the important thing is to remember that whatever happens, you'll be okay. right? And that's a really tough thing to say in a lot of different positions because life is painful, right? But the job of your job is to evolve to a space where you can seriously let go because, like I said, we just had a shout out to Gotham Studios, by the way, right?
gosh.
We just had an awesome promo before the show. They did an awesome interview. They were asking some
deep questions.
What?
Oh my gosh. But yeah, they're awesome interns at Gotham Podcast Studio. So you guys, if you're looking for a studio, you definitely have to check them out because and we have so much fun here.
I love this
it's becoming
place.
Family.
Yeah, this place is like I imagine this place being like, you know how like every not revolution but like Renaissance has like these really exclusive places where like these artists meet or these creatives or these minds meet and no one knows about it, but it's like such a poppin' and loving community where ideas are exchanged. That's Gotham Studios.
In the lobby, before and after shows. It just happens naturally.
Yeah, we meet awesome people, man.
It's been I love it here, so definitely join the family.
Studio I brought them up to say that the interns asked me, I should have gotten everybody's name. I'm sorry. That's really rude of me. But the Gotham studio representatives asked us a question. And in one of the questions, I was basically saying that as a society, we're so inundated with this false pretense of control, right? Because like I said earlier, we live in a society where it's like grab and keep just in case. So everyone feels like they have to grab and keep just in case and they have to hold on to and keep away from. And that's not even really control because we're not even in control as much as we think we are, right? Yeah. And the true control comes from actually letting go. Because then once you let go, you can control how much power comes out of you and how much you influence and impact a room when you need to or don't need to, right? But that only comes from having clarity because that's what the athlete has. It's the clarity, right, to use and exert this power on a situation and at an instant's notice. To do that in life as well, right? Yep. But you have to know your power. You have to be clear on your power. And so you got to get all these distractions out of the way.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of getting to that space. But we're so inundated with that false pretense of control that our dynamics in our relationships are intertwined with these false pretenses of control. And sometimes our relationships, our dynamics get in the way of the clarity. And so like a person like me, I just want to shed it quickly and get it out of the way so I can just be clear. But that's also damaging because then if you return back to those spaces, you've still got damage control. You've got more cleanup now. Right. And it's the age old adage. You cannot run from your problems. They'll be there when you're done running.
Or they show up in the next person or the next situation. And then it continues to be a lesson over and over and over until you learn it. Right. Yep. And that plays into boundaries as well. So, I mean, we could go round. I could talk about this for hours. We could go round and round with all of this. I mean, it's absolutely true. But I think the one thing you have to be okay with what's inside and outside and, release attachment. And you have to choose yourself. And you can do that in a very respectful way, but you have to start to figure out once you are on that journey, you start to figure out who you are and what you're passionate about and what your triggers are, then you also need to start forming healthy boundaries around those things, right? And you teach people, like you were saying before with your kids, like, I expect you to know how to treat me. Well, they don't, right? And so anyone, like us, a business relationship, you at your job, teachers, students, your kid, like everything. So you always have to be consistent with your boundaries and also choose yourself. So yes, while sometimes you walk away and you come back, then it's more of a problem. Sometimes it's less of a problem because you got some space. Sometimes you never go back and it's just something that wasn't that wasn't really there to serve you and your purpose or your higher good. So it's, again, all of that is just releasing.
Yeah, but it's also not just that. It's just not that simple at the same time because of the fear and the trepidation we walk with because, again, remember I said about the manipulation and also well, not a new concern, but a concern I hear a lot about is I don't want to waste my time. I can't get that time back. So we have these fears that go into it. So it's not that easy to just let go in these relationships, but it's that fear that we have to learn to lean into is the thing I keep pressing forward with because even the athlete had to try something crazy, a superstar athlete or a superstar CEO or an inventor had to try something crazy and had to fail a couple of times and had to be uncomfortable and had to be frustrated to get where they are, or else this success wouldn't be so sweet, right? But we shy away from those moments that make us formidable, right? Mm-hmm. We shy away from those moments that solidify us because they don't feel good and they don't feel great. It's the same with those uncomfortable conversations. Those uncomfortable conversations do not feel good. But on the other end of them, there's a little more clarity than there was before that conversation never happened, right? And so that's another thing I'm trying to come to terms with. I struggle with this idea of developing myself whilst people I'm trying to help or people I'm around are not developing themselves. It can sometimes come out wrong that I'm trying to develop myself or choose myself, as you say, right? And then there's some weird reactions to that.
Oh, there's going to be.
And that's another thing that is like, it's not that easy to just choose yourself when people make you feel bad about choosing yourself, or people feel like they're victims when you choose yourself and you don't choose them, And I feel like we live in a time where a lot of people act that way. They feel like if you're not catering to me or choosing me or letting me be the exception to the rule, then, you're being mean or you're being disrespectful or you're being rude or you're not being a good teammate,
Yeah.
And
it's hard.
It makes it hard to be an honest person.
You have to navigate all of it. It's very difficult.
Why can't I just say what I want to say? If I don't like that lady's hair and it looks like a wig, even though it's real, why can't I just say that out loud? Why does she have to take offense?
No. Taking it too far.
Too far?
As usual.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's going too far. But no, these are all part of like whether you're gonna. Those are choices you have to make. Some people are worth it. Some people are not. Some people are great for, a period of time. Other people are there to teach lessons. Other people are blessings. The sayings, how they all go. So it's just about life. It's messy. It's complicated. And we figure it out.
I feel that. It is messy. I mean, even in this conversation, right? After our brief hiatus, our argument, it's still not as smooth. Like, we did the show kind of like backwards almost, right? We brought the main topic up before anything. We never do that, right? But
in
it's
all fairness, we didn't talk that much about the shows either. Yeah. So, because we're not really like, talking that much. Yeah. Yeah. So that's part of it too. I mean, it just, you work through it, right? Like, yeah. I don't know. We'll show back up and have the show. And if we don't have the show, then we don't have the show. And it's, I don't know, but we're here at the show.
We're at the show.
So that's a good place to be for now.
And we gave a show. This has been a show.
Right. So we always do a quote at the end of the show.
Yes, indeed.
And it's my turn. And I honestly have so many that I had a really hard time picking. But if you are interested in learning more about vulnerability, my most favorite person on the planet, her name is Brene Brown, and she has researched it for over 20 years. And she has some of the best quotes about vulnerability that were ever written, in my opinion. And so I'm going to share a couple of them.
Okay.
But when you shut down vulnerability, you shut down opportunity. Mm-hmm. We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known.
Ooh, that's scary.
Yeah. Authenticity is she also speaks a lot about authenticity. Mm-hmm. It's vulnerability and authenticity. Okay. So you can be vulnerable enough to be authentic. So authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we are supposed to be and embracing who we are.
Wow. Yeah. When's she coming on the show?
I wish. Okay, a couple more because they're so good, right? Okay, vulnerability is the core of shame and fear and our struggle for worthiness, but it appears that it's also the birthplace of joy, of creativity, of belonging, of love. Okay, last one. She's so good. Okay. Owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy, the experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light.
I like her.
She's the best.
Her mind's awesome.
Ever. She is the best ever,
cool.
ever. Her and Glennon are like, and Oprah. I love all three. So anyway,
Wow.
so those are my quotes. I'm sorry I couldn't keep it to just one, but they're all so powerful and so helpful.
Yes, indeed.
And hopefully it inspired at least one person other than me.
Inspired me.
And thank you so much for listening to this. This was a mess.
This was a mess.
Not gonna lie, this was messy and complicated and really probably didn't flow well at all. But we showed up.
And we thank you for joining us, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I thank you for joining us as well, right? We all have choices. This was a choice we made, and I'm happy we made this choice. And even if our reconciling is still a journey that we're having out loud, I think at least we're growing from it, right? And that's the goal, to keep growing. So I appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much for showing up.
Thank you for showing up.
You better thank me because, listen.
I really just wanted to thank myself. Like, I'm going to pull the Snoop Dogg speech. Did you see when he was like, when he gets up and accepts his award, he's like, I like to thank myself.
Facts.
I like to thank myself for the hard work that I'm doing. I like to thank myself for breathing through this. I like to thank myself for having the courage to show up here today and be vulnerable enough to show up here today.
Like it.
I want to thank myself for being kind enough to even consider this conversation. No, but seriously, I
All right. That was a weird response to my response.
Listen, I've thanked you multiple times.
Okay.
In public, on the show, all these things. I don't get a lot of love from you, so I'm going to take it when I get it.
All right. A lot of love to Erin and a lot of love to everyone out there who is still watching Beyond the Journal, even if you're just watching with your ears. Tune in next time. That got weird.
Why did you have to say?
I don't know.
What was that? With your ears?
Watching with your ears? That's kind of poetic. I didn't even plug my book. Duh. I'm so bad at this. I write a book and then don't say anything about it.
You can do a thing out there.
One of my it's a commercial things.
Yeah, maybe.
Man, I'm so bad at this. People remind me, dude, don't you want to promote your book? And I'm like, oh, yeah. You know what it is? It's so hard for me to advertise because advertising feels so disingenuous. I have that stigma with it.
It does. It's not fun.
So I have to have fun when I'm promoting my book. Like I have to be goofy because then it's like, this is what I do.
I'm like, yeah, no, I get you. I'm listening. I hear you. I'm just like.
It's okay. It's all good.
I have no idea. Like, I'm in a weird space right now.